not me. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Capitalist Corner. I am your host, Mark Pellegrino, and also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and the vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, Michael Liebowitz, who also happens to host his own show, The Rational Egoist. And along with us today, we bring the great Jim Valliant, my friend, former prosecutor, great objectivist extraordinaire, and beater of Michael Liebowitz in every argument they ever have. Jim, it's great to see you.
It's great to be here. Let's get this threesome on. Come on.
Oh my God!
Whoa, that is going to be the fodder for Persephone.
Oh no!
I had to give her something right away.
Yeah, I didn't see Persephone in the pre-show thing. I mean, where is she? Is she?
She's
on?
not here today. She had to take the day off.
Okay, so as many of you know, we came up with a great intro, but we thought it was fair use. We thought it was public domain. We thought it wouldn't matter that we had this the Twilight Zone intro. It might, so we're checking into it because we as capitalists believe in IP, and so we want to pay the people who created that.
That was a great talk, Mark. It's almost verbatim the talk I gave yesterday.
Well, great. Well, I wasn't curious. So I'm just reassuring from the horse's mouth, since I was the voice of Rod Serling himself and co-creator of that entire thing with Persephone and Ashley Rizzi. We
have a great question, and I want to answer it right away before we do anything else.
Two things. I have to do two things.
Okay, you do two things.
We are not affiliated with the American Capitalist Party, folks. This is an independent entity, the Capitalist Corner, where we talk about news from a capitalist perspective. Number one, and I forgot what number two is, and that's your fault, Michael Liebowitz. So go ahead and go with. Oh, it's Q&A day. So go ahead.
As they know from the title.
Go ahead.
By the way, Mark, just so you know, your best bud here, Jim Valliant. The second you weren't here yesterday. Like, I'm surprised you don't have the tire treads from a bus across your forehead, because he threw you right under it.
What? I doubt it.
I wish I had the footage. I wish I knew how to do it right away. He came on the show and he said, I read the articles today, unlike Mark. That's what he said.
First of all, there were fewer articles than normal. I read all of the articles today as well.
This was yesterday.
But I read all the articles 99% of the time, but you point out 1% of the time where I miss one article, and you make it as if it's the whole thing.
That's not true. That's Codswallop. Okay, so just so everybody knows, I have a great interview out right now about psychology with Stephen Stosny. He's been a professor. He's a therapist. It's really, really good. Go check it out. It's about blame, accountability, hypocrisy. I think you're going to love it. And this one, I just got to answer, and then we can get to some other questions. The answer to your question, Deeper Diego, is an absolutely no, it does not. What the Constitution grants Congress the authority of is naturalization. That is who becomes a citizen, not who enters the country. If you go to the Constitutional Convention debates, one of the concern was that if you allow foreigners to become citizens too soon, those foreigners would be able to infiltrate our government on behalf of other governments. That is one of the reasons Congress was given the authority over naturalization, not immigration. It was understood that people would want to come here, but not necessarily become citizens. You also have to keep in mind that at the time, the concern was that not enough people would be coming over here. They wanted people coming here. So, Jim, I will let you also tackle this.
Well, I was gonna say, now we need a fact check from Jim Valliant.
Oh, okay.
No. First,
but I gotta say though, what he is talking about here, and this is why I went to the Constitution, the migration or importation of such people. No, it refers to slaves and indentured servants. It does not refer to immigrants.
That is absolutely correct. You want to distinguish the slavery crap. And what it was doing was saying that there's a limit that Congress could outlaw the international slave trade at a certain point, which they did. So it's not a pro-slavery thing altogether. It's actually putting a limit on the importation of new slaves. But in any case, our first step in any constitutional analysis is, where does the power come from? Congress gets each one of its powers very selectively and intentionally given to it in Section 8 of Article 1. If it ain't there, all the Federalist, Anti-Federalist, they all agreed if it ain't listed in Section 8, the Congress, the federal government does not have this power. Nowhere will you read about a power to restrict, control, regulate immigration at all in Section 8 of Article 1. It was a creation of the court. Truly, well into the 19th century, just after the Civil War, the Supreme Court simply said, this is a power that nations have. Every other nation in the world has it. So we'll respect it when Congress passes, say, a Chinese Exclusion Act. That was a totally unconstitutional move on the Supreme Court's part. Now, it has been the law for the last 150 years by the Supreme Court's lights, but the Supreme Court has departed from the Constitution on many cases. I mean, right at that period, it was a particularly ugly time for Supreme Court decisions. They were gutting the 14th Amendment with Plessy versus Ferguson. They were gutting the Privileges and Immunities Clause in the slaughterhouse cases. The Supreme Court was not doing liberty a lot of favors at the end of the 19th century or after, in the wake of the Civil War. They were trying to pull back from the radical nature, in fact, of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. And government power, come on. If it's not specified in Section 8 of Article 1, it ain't a power. And I read that narrowly and strictly. The key codes to the Constitution, as I've long said, are the 9th and 10th Amendments. If we don't give you the power, you don't got it. That's the 10th Amendment. That's right there in the Bill of Rights. And, oh, by the way, on the other side of it, the Bill of Rights should not be read in a narrow way. This listing of rights in the Bill of Rights should not be construed to deny or disparage other rights people have. So when it comes to liberty versus government authority, read the powers narrowly. If you do that, and of course, Mr. Madison himself, the father of the Constitution, wrote a letter around 1800 explaining this, saying there ain't no such power. If there's any such power, it's on the part of the states. We don't define the states' powers in the federal Constitution. So if anybody's got the power, guess what? It's the states that have the power to regulate immigration.
See, this is what I like when Jim is correct. Now,
Which
Jim,
he usually is. But wait, I have to
usually, except when he disagrees with me.
No, he's usually right in those cases too. But not to get off topic here, because this is an immensely interesting topic. I do have to say, folks, like and share this stuff, because this is gold what you're getting here. You're not going to get this on any other station. Please share it on your various social media platforms. I also have to deal with a controversy that's going on. Of course, Lee is causing the controversy on the comment section. She's saying she wants me to do a hair reveal. Everybody's like, she says I've probably broken the law by the fact that I did a cameo for her while I was coming home from hair and makeup. So she was really the first person to see my hair. But Lee, I have not broken the law. My NDA is still intact. You don't know what project I'm doing. You don't know what character I'm doing. You might have seen my hair, but so has everybody in Toronto at this point. And so have many people.
That's an exaggeration.
Yes, everybody in Toronto is looking at me right now. Hi, guys. If they've seen it. So I'm not breaking my NDA because you don't know what I'm doing, and I won't tell you, no matter how much you try to get it out of me. Anyway, Michael, I saw a question up there. I want to deal with it.
I'm going to get to it, but I wanted to elaborate just a little on what Jim just said. You're kind of jumping. Is the question racist question about VA benefits? Is that the one you're talking about?
No, that wasn't the question. It was
all right.
You go ahead and continue talking.
Well, this is racist question. So, Jim, just to clarify, the Supreme Court basically admitted that there's no enumerated power over immigration. They invented it out of whole cloth and just said, "Oh, but it's included in the sovereign power."
That's it.
Codswallop.
That's it. You know, there are a lot of things like that. There are several things like that where the Supreme Court is just using, what is it in Jurassic Park, the frog DNA? They just use frog DNA rather than any rules of actual statutory interpretation, which should really be strict about when we're talking about the Constitution, far more strictly than, say, an ordinary contract or a statute that some state legislature might pass. The Constitution has to be read really strictly, or the whole thing goes to hell. And boy, how many times have they had this frog DNA where they basically let it supply the answer? It's not just here, my friends. When they distorted what the Commerce Clause means, when they distorted what other passages in the Constitution mean, they were pulling it out of their rear end.
I love that James is trying to start a fire with his fingers there. Now, did the frog DNA go over your head, Michael? Do you understand the frog DNA reference?
Are you out of your mind?
No, there's just
how would that go over my head? I've seen Jurassic Park.
Oh, Okay, you just didn't see what you just hadn't seen Princess Bride, so I thought perhaps
Yeah, one movie I didn't see. And
The
by the
one
way,
movie.
the movie, you guys really exaggerated how good that movie was. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to stick it to
bad
you,
take.
but you're starting something here. See, Mark is high on his horse. I'm not going to tell you. Mark got me good last night, right? He broke my balls and he got me really good, and now he's feeling a little extra oomph, a little confident.
And you're feeling
Nobody
and you're feeling some overlap resentment.
No, I got this allergy thing going on. But what was I going to say now? Oh, but just to change the subject for a second, I'm working on this. I want to stop swearing, right? Because hanging around with you two, my swearing has gotten out of control. Both of you.
I'm calling bullshit on that.
See, it rubs off because then I do it and I can't control it. Once I get, it's like an addiction. It's all or nothing with me. Once I start, I can't stop. My school teacher one time counted how many times I swore in a class. And another school teacher said to me, "Hey, let's see, can you go a conversation without swearing?" And I've got to stop. You two are a bad influence, but especially Mark. But Race Jacobson asks a question here. He says he has a tough and juicy question. I don't really know that it's tough or juicy, but we're going to answer it. He says, are VA benefits a valid use of taxpayers' money? So my answer is there is no valid use of taxpayers' money. So that's my answer.
Well, I would distinguish two things: constitutionally and morally. The Constitution immorally gives to the federal government. This is where something you will find in Section 8, the power to tax. They can levy customs duties, excise taxes, and that you'll find that right at the top of the list in Section 8. And paying for soldiers in any context, let's separate that out. That is a moral thing because that is a proper function of government. So how we pay and what benefits veterans get, that is perfectly valid. The question is it constitutional? Well, yeah, taxing is, but that is one of the power to do tariffs and excises is one of the great, terrible things that the Constitution actually gives Congress the power to do.
So James, would you amend that? Would you amend that?
Oh,
how would you amend it so that we didn't have these overreaches of Congress, because Congress certainly they have to be paid for the protective services. They have to pay the soldiers. The courts have to be paid. The police have to be paid, and that's where the taxpayer money would be for. So when you make a voluntary system, how would you amend the Constitution to make that voluntary system?
To totally shift over to a voluntarily financed government would be probably the last reform we can imagine accomplishing. We as objectivists, we'll disagree about things and tactics politically in the meantime, who to vote for, whether to vote at all, that kind of thing. But when it comes to our end goal, it's the same. But even with our end goal of purely voluntarily financed government, surely would be the last reform we would be able to enact. In the meantime, there'd be nothing wrong, in my view, with constricting that power as much as possible. I'd get rid of the general welfare language that you find there, because that was totally, rather than seen as a limitation on the power to tax and spend, that was seen as but in the 1930s, they flipped the script from it being a limitation on the power to tax and spend to being an authorization to spend for the general welfare. So we can remove that crappy language from that section right there, and we can put limits on it. For example, we can put limits on national debt and borrowing. As an interim measure, I would put just absolute limits on the percentage that they could tax people in any kind of taxation. Also,
how would you do that? How would you implement these changes?
You mean other than just once we get a constitutional amendment that would say something like the government cannot spend more than X of GDP or borrow at all, or except in time of war? How about that? No government borrowing except during times of declared war. Full stop. Full stop. How about we limit the percentage take of any tax that we put on it? How about we repeal the income tax amendment? Because, income tax is a direct tax that was not permitted back when they had some sense of limitation on the power to tax and spend given in Section 8, the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that, can't do that. They had to pass a constitutional amendment. Let's get rid of the income tax amendment. Let's put limits on how they can borrow at all. Let's put limits on how much they can tax at all in the meantime. And get rid of that.
Well, that would certainly restrain their power, and they don't want that, James. I have to say I'm in agreement with James, respecting this race. Michael's position that there is no. What was your position? There's no right use.
Jim agreed with me. I don't know what you're trying to create controversy where none exists.
Well, no, under the, I'm assuming a voluntary tax system, but under the system that as
okay, so let's address what you
the one valid thing
sure.
the government can and should pay for is
okay. So now I'm going to start arguing with both you and the chat here, and Ayn Rand while we're at it, right? And Jim, if he gets smart. So listen. Christopher Smith says he disagrees with me, and then he says Rand wants voluntary taxation. Okay. First pet peeve of mine. Doesn't matter to me what Rand wants. Don't care. I care if the argument makes sense or not. So let's take a look at this. Voluntary taxation is a contradiction in terms. I understand why to use it because you're referring to government funding, but taxation literally means wealth taken by the government from the people. It doesn't require consent. That's what taxation is. So now, if you're talking about would I have in a purely voluntarily funded government, would I personally say it's okay for the government to take the money that is given to it to spend on vets? Sure, because they're part of the national defense. So I would say yes, but that's not the question that Race asked. Race asked, is it a valid use of taxpayers' money? Now, Jim is absolutely correct. The Constitution allows it. It allows all kinds of things that I'm not a big fan of. So then the other guy that I want to argue with is Ian Gilmore says there is no valid use of taxes, but the question is, are VA benefits a valid use of government spending? Well, the problem, Ian, is that wasn't the question. The question was taxpayers' money. Had it been about government spending, I would have answered that, yes, I think it is. So now let me look up here. I got to find, there was a good question here. Yes, Miss Rand did say taxes voluntarily, but that's a mistake on her part. And if I'm not mistaken, she actually addressed it and said technically that it be voluntary.
I think because it's a term everyone understands.
Yeah,
it's a common usage term. She just used it in that sense.
And the alternatives she threw out were like a court fee or a lottery or
yes.
Like that. If you want your contract over a certain value to be enforced in court, you pay a fee.
Right.
For example. Or a lottery. My God, how many states have lotteries? And how
yes.
much they raise? And rather than going to education or healthcare, it should be going to the limited things the government should be doing. So there are multiple various means of voluntary financing. But she also agreed that it would be, like welfare mothers. She put that stuff at the bottom of the list in terms of her list of priorities. She wanted things like antitrust and economic regulations dealt with first. She wanted, our civil and economic liberties in a fundamental way protected first. And then you start getting rid of important things like Social Security and Medicare. All right, now you've really started making a dent in government as far as Rand is concerned. But only at the end of all that would she say, okay, now let's go over to completely voluntarily.
I have to make an announcement. Guys, we are very, very fortunate. First of all, we have Jonathan Hoenig in the audience.
Ooh.
So that's huge. That's huge. Thank you so much for being here. The fact that we have the capitalist pig turning into the capitalist corner is awesome. The second thing I want to say is you two are both in trouble with Megan Ribbons because she says Jurassic Park is about science, not about the comedy. Basically, what she's saying is you two are turning it into a joke, and it's not a joke. I did not do that, Megan. That's the first thing. But we do have a question.
I was using a metaphor. Dr. Ribbons.
It was a metaphor, and I was just checking.
No, don't let him get away with this.
Because the last time we did this with Princess Bride, he had the same look on his face that he had this time, which is like that right there.
What? I saw Jurassic Park in the theaters. I saw it in the theaters. I remember reading about it before it even came out. First of all, I could believe Jim saw it. I could believe Jim saw it in the theaters. There is no way a prima donna like Mark is going to a theater with the common folk. I'm
What are you
sorry.
talking about? I saw it in the
He
theaters.
got on his
And
jet
unlike
and
you,
he had
and
them
unlike,
put,
I
he had
also
them
read the
plug it
book.
in.
From
I also read the book.
mucks in Hollywood somehow, right?
Yeah, he was in his with his Hollywood. Probably had Rosie Ginsburg on the jet with him, watching. So because that's what they do, they fly around together and
Hyperbole.
watch movies before they even come out.
Hey, there's a question by Nicole Hingle that I think is very interesting. I think we should address that before we go off on this tangent.
I wanted to get to hers after the next one. I know
Okay.
what Nicole Hingle's question was. Megan is now backtracking. She said, no, the screenwriter made the movie a joke, not you two. Megan, it's okay. You don't have to worry about their feelings. So anyways, I think it was Kat Sterling asked a question about assisted suicide, euthanasia. I'm all for it. I think people have the right to take their own life. And by the way, I don't even think it has to be for a cause. I don't care if the person's sick. I don't give a damn. If somebody says one day, you know what? I want off of this place.
Remember, this is not representative of the policies of the Capitalist Party, folks.
It's not. Well, it should be.
Nor is Michael Liebowitz endorsing suicide as a means of getting off the planet. If you're depressed, we encourage you as a party, a pro-life party and a pro-choice party, to seek medical attention.
Oh my God! Listen.
I want to make sure everybody knows
we're gonna have a good
jump
argument.
Off the deep end of the pier,
listen. This is fundamental. A person, no human being on this planet has the right to tell an adult that that adult has to stay alive. It's right. Not your damn business. It simply is not. If somebody, and look, I've had my mother committed suicide, broke my heart. My best friend committed suicide. My aunt committed suicide. It's painful. It's very painful when people you love do this. And I don't recommend it. I wish that people would never feel that way. But the bottom line is, I would rather have people that feel that way than have people feel that they have the right to initiate force against another human being to violate that person's wishes.
I absolutely agree with you. I just want you to know, I think that is an absolutely pro-life perspective, even though it is paradoxically so. But I want to make it clear to people that when you are pro-choice, 100% across the line for human beings, you are advocating for the unique way in which human beings must live. And Michael, my best friend killed himself too. So I understand that. One of my best friends now, who's in his 80s, has told me flat out, he's only going for 3 more years. So he's not going to let himself. He's like, Mark, I'm not going to go to 85. When the time comes, I'm gonna do it myself. I've already accumulated enough medication to do it. Would you stop me? I'm like, I'm not going to stop you from doing. I can't gauge the pain you're in, the amount of misery you're in, the psychic issues that you're having. You know those things better than I do. I would, of course, say, please choose life because you're my friend and I get a selfish benefit from talking to you every day. But I also understand your life is yours and you have to do with it what you choose. So I understand this also from a personal perspective, as you do, Michael. James,
so do I. I mean, one of my buddies from high school, while he was still in college, took a shotgun to his head and it just shocked us all. It really did. And it's when a young person does it, it's even more. If you're old and sick and you're deciding when to check out, that's one thing. And if you're doing it all on your own, Michael, if you decide right now, and I'll do it all on my own. Now, when I put my lawyer cap on, I say to myself, when it comes to assisted suicide, what we're doing is we're saying that there are forms of one person killing another person that are legal. That has to be very carefully regulated and monitored.
I agree. Gary Menard actually asked that, Jim. I want to tell you his question because I think you're gonna hit on it, and I think it's an important one. Gary Menard says, but should assisted have some kind of objective validation to prevent the charge of homicide for the sister? Yes. Absolutely. And I think it needs to be crystal clear that there hasn't been undue influence or, or lying or anything like that.
I think of all the murder cases I did, and I can imagine someone coming in, 2 days before I killed this person, they told me in a private conversation, please kill me. And you could create this defense that would be, manufacture out of thin air. So I want written or taped, videotaped evidence that says, yes, please.
Now, isn't that in states and countries where assisted suicide is allowed? Isn't that part of the requirement? They usually give video testimony. Kevorkian, when he was protesting against the fact that governments were prohibiting assisted suicide would get the people to say on tape that I am of sound mind and body. This is what I'm choosing to do. One person in particular I remember had Lou Gehrig's disease. He did not want to die that horrible death. If anybody knows what that's like, my aunt's husband died of that, and at the very end, the only thing he could do was blink his eyes. He was a complete prisoner in his own body. Who would want to live like that? Eventually, he dies choking to death. That's because you can't swallow anymore, and so you eventually choke to death and die of suffocation. It's a horrible way to go. And so Kevorkian would, of course, make these videos so that people made the testimonial. Now, there are some states where you do that to cover your legal basis, and you would still go to jail, despite the fact that it's voluntary on the other person's side. And they're doing it with a physician assist so that they know nothing goes wrong. So you're just driving people, like all prohibition of actions or products that people want, that there's a market for, that they want to do. You're just driving them to more dangerous territory where they take far more risky behavior, like my friend, who's just going to try to take a whole bunch of pills. And when he goes out, who knows if that's going to actually do the job or leave him in a worse condition.
Right.
Because
even without the existence of these laws, in many places they've come to a much more humane state of affairs. My uncle, for example, he had terminal cancer, and at the end they said, "Look, you've only got a few weeks to live. Here's a fatal dose. You can go take it at home when you're ready." And when he was ready, he took it at home, and that's the way he wanted to go. And it was a much more dignified end. And there was no assisted suicide law. They just gave him that dose. Or much more informally, this was way back, 30 some years ago when my brother died around the age of 30 of a terminal illness. I know what he wanted. He didn't want to hang around and in misery. And the physician, thank God, said, I think he's in a lot of pain. I think we're just going to keep turning up the pain meds tonight. And my mother and I we had tears of gratitude for the doctor when he did that, because we know what my brother wanted. And it was a much more peaceful, again, and dignified end than he would have had. It would have been a long, miserable, prolonged period in a hospital bed just being in pain. Who the hell wants that?
I can't express enough, folks. I know it sounds like we're talking about death, and many people in the Republican side of things, the right side of the aisle, who are motivated by religious values, would claim that we are, look at the party of death. No. This is life. This is pro-life. This is pro-dignity. This is people taking control of their own destiny, as they should in every aspect of their life. Now, that is an official position of the Capitalist Party. It's also our own personal belief.
It's very pro-life, because we're saying that a person's life is that person's own. They have the right to do with their life that which they wish, as long as they're not violating somebody else's rights, initiating force against somebody else. There is no stronger pro-life position. It is the correct pro-life position. Have you guys ever seen the movie $1 Million Baby by any chance?
You know what? I've never seen it.
I don't think
Okay, well, I'm going to spoil it,
but I know the ending and everything.
So what happens is that this girl, Hilary Swank, she goes to Clint Eastwood and he trains her to be a boxer, reluctantly. He had previously trained another guy, and the guy got really hurt. So Clint was very hesitant to put his fighters in dangerous spots. But he ends up taking her on, and he puts her in, and this girl sucker punches her after the round was over. Hilary Swank ends up breaking her neck, and she's completely paralyzed from the neck down. Now, a couple of things happen here. One is she asks Clint Eastwood to please kill her. I mean, she ends up biting her tongue. She's trying to die. And Clint goes to his priest, and he's talking about it. And the priest says the priest says to Clint, it's for God to decide when people live or die. And Clint says to the priest, she asked for my help, not God's help.
Beautiful.
That was the first thing. The next thing that I thought was absolutely wonderful was Clint goes to talk to Morgan Freeman, and Clint is really down on this whole situation. And Morgan Freeman points out to him, that girl, had nothing when she first came to you. Now she's traveled the world. She lived her dream. She did everything, that she wanted to do. So yes, the girl in the movie, I think she was 32 or 33 years old. And yes, it was a horrible end. But two things. One, she got to live the life she wanted, which is all the most any of us can expect. And two, she got to die the way that she wanted because she did not want to live in that state. She even, I think, told Clint, listen, after having people it's cheering my name, I don't want to live like this. So I thought that movie, it might be my favorite. That, Judgment at Nuremberg, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. All right.
Great films. Great films. All well. You just made me cry, and it's Friday, and that's not
Friday Cry Day.
Friday Cry Day. Yeah. So I sometimes avoid Clint Eastwood movies because they tend to be a little bit sappy for me. But I'm going to watch that now because don't look at me like that.
I'm just thinking Clint Eastwood movies sappy.
A little sappy. A little sappy for me.
All right. Well,
you mean the early ones? You know, like the
No.
Yeah. It's the Outlaw Josie Wales. Boy, that's a tearjerker.
I'm talking about the ones.
Well, I thought The Unforgiven wasn't too sappy. And
The Unforgiven was not sappy.
Andy Bernstein hates The Unforgiven, by the way. I love it.
Why?
He says that there's just no good guys in the movie. It's all bad. It's all dark. There's no heroes.
Well, I mean,
but
the guy gives into his dark side in the end, but he gives in. I mean,
in the name of justice,
for a good reason.
Yeah. It's about justice.
He gets justice. He gets it, and you know what? It's to me. There's a line in a John Patrick Shanley play called Doubt, which is one of his greatest plays he's ever. I don't know if you know John Patrick Shanley. It's one of the greatest plays he's ever.
Not personally, no.
I know you don't know him personally. I mean, I don't know if you know his work, is what I'm saying.
But it's not what you asked.
Sister Aloysius.
It's not. Ian Gilmore is yelling at you guys.
You and your language precision. I'm about to rip my own head off.
Speaking of precision, Ian Gilmore's yelling at me. It's not The Unforgiven. It's Unforgiven.
Okay, whatever. Listen.
Okay.
One time, John Patrick Shanley wrote in this book when Sister Aloysius is talking about her conviction that the priest has molested this child. And she's talking it over with the sister about what one must do when confronting evil. She says one must take a step away from God in order to confront these things. I thought that was a very profound statement. And now I've forgotten what the fuck it was related to because of you, Michael Liebowitz.
No, don't blame me. Blame Ian Gilmore. Ian Gilmore's the one who corrected us.
That was complete. Oh, there it is. So here it is. That's what it was related to. The Unforgiven. So he steps away. He steps away from the virtue he's been practicing for 20 some odd years to deal with blatant, disgusting, despicable evil. It's sort of like what I feel the IDF has to do. You're dealing with evil. It makes you step away seemingly, even though your goal is protection of the good. You have to do bad things in order to protect the good sometimes. Now, that doesn't mean evil things. It just means things that any normal human being would find despicable, like killing another human being, which is not really what we would want to do, but we may have to in order to defend virtue, in order to defend the good, in order to get justice.
I had to do unpleasant things to get justice done sometimes. Is it fun to call a rape victim or a child molest victim to the stand so that they get re-traumatized by the whole thing and have to explain in public this pain that they went through? No, it ain't fun. But, you know, I've spoken to the witnesses or the parents of the witnesses, and I've said, look, we got to do this because there's going to be more victims if we don't stop this mofo. So they are doing a heroic thing, an unpleasant thing. Sometimes we got to do unpleasant things to get, I'll use the word greater good, but not the greater good for society, the greater good for ourselves.
Indeed, yeah. But the movie makes it seem like he descends back into his old self, but I think it was for reasons that were just. Are you going to deal with Nicole Hingel's question? Or are you going?
You are going to. I know what the question is. I have to deal with the allergies. I'll be right back. But you can ask the question. I sent you guys the articles that I found on the subject. I know Jim has read them. I will be back in a minute.
On the subject. Okay, well, the question that I'm seeing, Jim, is do you think advances in AI will make jobs scarce, or is it the next chapter in capitalism's evolution? I have my answers to that, but I want to hear yours first.
Oh, I think it'll greatly increase the number of jobs over the number of job opportunities that we have now. You know, it's funny. It's a funny thing, you know, as technology develops, they always say, you know, these when the factories come along, and mass produce things. It used to take one craftsman, weeks to do one little, and then the factory pumps them out by the hundreds. And so obviously you're going to put all these shoemakers out of work because you've got factory made shoes now. No, we find out that the increased productivity makes us all richer, and human needs and desires are insatiable, absolutely insatiable. So what you're going to do with increases in productivity, if it is an increase in productivity, what you're actually doing is creating more wealth, more opportunity for more industries and more jobs. So I'm going to go way out on a limb here, ladies and gentlemen. AI is going to create far more jobs in the long run than it's going. Sure, will it put some people out of work? Will it reduce the hours for other people to do that same work? Absolutely. That's called an increase in productivity. And an increased productivity, given the insatiable needs and desires of humanity, means that there's going to be more job opportunities, more production, not less. You please, if someone would just please let me know when they think that the maw of human needs and desires will ever be satisfied. Because that's what that's the ultimate reality that people evade when they say that new technology puts people out of work. Did computers 30 years ago, 40 years ago, start putting people out of work? Yeah, it also created way more jobs than it eliminated.
But James, people seem to think that this is different. People seem to think this isn't just a technological innovation. Right. I agree with you. Now, I am in 100% agreement. I've had this argument and discussion with people close to me in my life.
The printing press is going to put the handwritten scribe out of business. It takes a lot more men and a lot more man hours to print everything out by hand. We were putting out the scribes out of business when they invented the printing press. The factory, you can get about the factory. Boy, think of all the jobs it eliminated to have modern factories. But of course, it creates more opportunity, economic opportunity, because it generates more wealth. I have now more money to buy more stuff with. And so if someone can explain to me when human needs and desires will be satiated, and that's it. We don't need any more. I'm perfectly happy. I don't want any more. And
what do you think? What do you think about this comment, Jim? Because some people claim that now it's upping the ante in such a way that what I've noticed over the decades of advancement is we increasingly move away from physical labor as a means of production and to intellectual labor as a means of production. Now that means you have to think more and more and more and more to be on top in a society that's becoming increasingly complex like that. So the fears of some people is that, those who don't have that capacity to think, who don't have the capacity to engage with this new type of technology, they're going to be left behind. What do you say to that?
Well, no, the people have always been doing let me put it this way, non-intellectually demanding work. And it may be that some people are simply incapable of doing highly creative intellectual work. That doesn't mean they're going to be out of work any more than it put people like service workers out of work. In fact, it'll create more opportunities for such service workers. People will be wealthier, and so they can afford more such services from
which also enables them to focus more on their creative activity and more on their innovation and make us all richer. Yes, I agree.
Exactly. I can hire a dog walker now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm confused.
Oh, that's surprising.
Well, this wasn't the question that was submitted to me from Nicole Hingle. It had nothing to do with AI.
Well, that was the question that I read on the chat. So
Nicole Hingle, you don't read your
didn't post the question that you wanted us to answer, so I just answered the one.
I thought I was under the impression. I'm sorry, I was under the impression that you actually read your emails, because we got an email. In the email was Nicole Hingle's question.
The impression that I read my emails.
You're right. Bad assumption on my part. Good point.
Haven't you talked to Persephone, for Christ's sake?
Yeah. Well, that's who sent the email. So I sent you guys the article about the guy who couldn't read English, allegedly, the truck driver. So Nicole.
I've seen all those. I've read all those articles, Mikey.
Okay, but you didn't read Nicole Hingle's question.
Well, because Nicole Hingle's question I read from the comments. So now, why don't you address her question?
I'm about to, but you're not letting me. You keep interrupting me. So it was.
I'm not interrupting you.
Who?
I'm not interrupting you.
I think you were right. By the way, I think you're onto
I think
something
you're
with
making
the
James
sweat thing.
uncomfortable.
I think that when I get out of the shower, my pores are sweating a little bit, and that's why I'm having trouble
This is
drying off.
non sequitur king. All right, let's
It's
get back
not
to
a
the
non
subject.
sequitur.
I've
Okay,
been-
that's not
I've
what a
been
non
fucking
sequitur
around.
is. All right.
I've been
Wait, if
fucking
we're Abbott and
around.
Costello, am I the fat one?
You are. Get to her question, man.
Ian
I don't-
Gilmore is so serious. He hates when we joke. Ian Gilmore is reprimanding us. He says this back and forth stuff doesn't make for good video. It's a
and of course it does. It's
callback and the non sequitur. Okay. Anyways, the question is, I was wondering about Michael and Mark's thoughts regarding the recent accident in Florida involving a truck driver who did not speak English and was unable to read road signs. 3 people were killed. So in reading these articles, it's interesting how, depending where the article comes from, how they present it.
Yep.
Like one article claims it was claimed by the Justice Department. The other article says this guy couldn't read, right? It's very different. And so I'm having a hard time figuring out what actually.
Have you seen the video
happened.
clip of the truck driver in New Mexico
Yes.
pulled over?
Yes.
No, I did
I
not.
have
That's
seen it.
not, but that's not this guy. Just this is in Florida.
Well, no.
No, this is.
Commercial
This is
driver.
in New Mexico?
Yeah, well, he has driving a big rig takes you to many, many states. I've had friends who are big rig drivers.
No,
He
I
was
get that, but
granted
the
a-
articles I sent, where did they take place?
The 3 deaths of the 3 people happened in Florida.
Florida.
Okay,
He
all
was
right.
granted a commercial driver's license in Washington. It was renewed in California. He was pulled over for a traffic stop driving his big rig in New Mexico, where they captured a cop vid of this guy trying to communicate with him. Fast forward to Florida, he actually does violate the sign, tries to make a turn there that is not lawful, and boom, a car plows into him. I've seen the video of that as well, causing the death of 3 people. And you can even see the look on the guy's face as that crash is happening. Now, in Florida, they happen to have a law that says, guess what? If you're not legally in the country, you cannot legally drive in our state. So screw whatever the commercial license was in California or Washington, because normally there's a interstate agreement about these things. Florida, however, can have its own rules, just as Washington and California can have its own rules. They can give out commercial driver's licenses to people without proof of citizenship. Can't do that in Florida. In fact, in Florida, if you're not legally in the country, you cannot legally drive on the streets of the state of Florida. So just a little legal context there.
Yeah, actually, and a little personal context. I was rear-ended by a truck driver from Mexico who couldn't speak English on the 405 freeway. As I was stopped, he clearly had been driving for more than 24 hours, had fallen asleep at the wheel, and stopped. But was going so fast he smacked into my rear end. And I think there are quite the percentage is not is fairly high of folks that are come from other countries that are driving our freight across the United States. Yeah, it's fairly high, high enough for Trump's prohibitions to actually affect the transportation of goods in the United States. So, I mean, look, the Department of Transportation gave this guy tests that he failed multiple times. So they keep trying to. Are they pinning this on the private sector, Michael? I mean,
no, I don't know, and I'm real hesitant to give a strong opinion because I'm not convinced, based on the articles, what the truth of the matter is here. And there's some mix-up. Like somebody in the what I mean by mix-up is there's different issues involved. Like somebody in the chat said that he made a U-turn from the wrong lane. Clearly, that's a bad move.
Well, he made a U-turn in a turnout area, usually where cops sit to.
Okay, so clearly that's wrong. The question then is, was it because he can't read English? Is that the proximate cause of the turn? Because the argument that's being made is that the people who can't read English shouldn't be allowed to drive. First of all, I'm uncomfortable because I know Donald Trump issued an executive order. I'm uncomfortable with that from the get-go with the executive order stuff. I'm not uncomfortable requiring people to know how to read street signs in order to drive. Now, you also don't have to be fluent in English to read street signs. So the claim was about this guy in one of the articles that you can hear he can speak broken English. Okay, can he then make out the signs that he's reading?
Not only
I
that,
don't know.
not only that, Mike, not to interrupt, but not only that, GPS comes in pretty much every language that you can fathom. I've driven in multiple foreign countries where I didn't understand the languages on the signs. GPS is helping me, of course, get through it. Even places where I'm driving on the other side of the road, and all of the equipment is on the other side of the car, and I've still had no issues, and nobody stopped me, but if they did, I'm still, I rent the cars from these places, so they allow me to drive. I think this person was also put in a rather difficult position because I think they came here in 2018 illegally. They were about to be deported, but claimed they couldn't go back to India because their life would be under threat. So the Trump administration made it impossible for him to get a work permit. So here's a guy who's in the country now who cannot work legally. Again, this is a terrible position to put another human being in. You're putting him between a rock and a hard place when you do that. And it's precisely it encourages the kind of parasitism and issues that I think become the headlines of the news that make people think that, well, now these immigrants are largely parasites on society. Well, they're being prevented from working. They have to wait sometimes for years for their number to come up so they can get tried and so they can get these visas. I mean, the courts are so backlogged that these people wind up being in very unfortunate circumstances that no human being should be in for an extended period of time. Now, I personally, this doesn't represent the capitalist party perspective, but I have issues with licensures. I have issues with all certification, all of this stuff, which makes it, of course, easy for the state to track us, but doesn't necessarily make for a qualified human being. I think those kinds of decisions should be made on the part of the employer and the employee, the agreement between the two of them. Whether somebody is a good driver of an 18-wheeler is really probably better judged by the trucking company that's hiring him than some Department of Transportation.
Well, he passed it. When you go get a license, at least in Connecticut, you have to take a written portion and a driving portion.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to read, unless they're just faking it. Because like Ian Gilmore asked, are illiterate Americans allowed to drive? Well, you could be illiterate, right, but still be able to make out certain things.
Right, yeah. Well, like what Mark says, I mean, try driving in rural Greece, for example, as I did. Even if you're familiar with ancient Greek, when you're out away from the cities, there's no, Roman letters under there, so I can sort of piece it together. You're just winging it, okay? And an illiterate person, yeah, there has to be a minimum literacy. But wait a minute, the roads. To go back to, again, what government ought and ought not to be doing. In an ideal world, the roads.
This is where I was going.
It would be privately owned and they would be privately regulated. And in this case, of course, those private road owners would really be on the hook liability wise if something like this happened. Or in this case,
I don't know that they would, Jim. I don't know that they would.
I don't know.
Well, because here's why. Let's assume, right, that we have the system that we'd want and you have private roads, right? Well, then you have an agreement with the owner of the road who can and can't drive on their roads.
Right.
So you might, for instance, and so if you're a consumer, you might know, okay, this particular road, these are the rules. You don't have to know how to read or write English in order to drive on this road, and you choose to go on it anyway.
And even if the private road owner said, there's no speed limit here. Oh, and you can drive at a 2.0 blood alcohol level. Would that put the road company on the hook for danger to other people involved?
It could, but if it's legal for them to do that, and if everybody agrees, then you're, caveat emptor.
Waiver saying, I know I could get killed immediately by someone driving at 100 miles an hour at a blood alcohol level of 2.0. That's the kind of disclosure waiver
I suspect
they'd have to get.
I suspect that any private road owner who's running a road where they're like no speed limit and come if you're drunk is not going to get much. I mean, and that's the beauty of capitalism, right?
And the kind of
Like,
waiver he'd need from me to alleviate himself of liability would have to be that specific.
but I wouldn't go on
I
that
believe in
road.
waivers, unlike our current legal system, where you should be able to waive legal liability. If I want to buy an experimental toaster that could blow up in my face, if they warn me, hey, look, this could blow up in your face, sign a waiver. You can't do that under consumer.
I cannot believe that of all the examples in the world, I thought you were going experimental meds. You went with experimental toaster.
Well, a toaster is so prosaic anyone can see, but I mean, the liability laws make it strict liability on the toaster manufacturer, and if he tries to get a waiver of future liability, it's thrown out of court. Unequal bargaining power. That big bad toaster company could force its toaster down your throat. That's bull. So I believe that there should be, just like with suicide, people should be able to control their own risks. If I want to buy a nuclear-powered toaster and they put a big warning on it, warning, this could kill you, will you waive liability? Okay. But so we should have waivers just as we have, and people should be able to buy warranties or insurance on the other side of it. Hey, I guarantee this will work and not hurt you for the next 5 years. Okay, I should be able to buy warranties and insurance. That should be part of the negotiation. Now, in this case, even with government roads, though, the trucking company that he was involved in or whoever he was working for, they are, as well as this guy, on the hook for the training and operation of that driver's, that driver that day. You hired, and wait a minute here, he was clearly breaking the law here. Was there some breakdown in whether it's the guy he's trucking for or the trucking company he works for? You let this guy who was violating the driving laws of Florida out there to drive a effing big rig, which could kill people. They could well be on the hook, it seems to me, for just a simple negligence, wrongful death case.
You guys like toast? I like toast.
Well, toast is okay, but it's what are you putting on it, right? And that's the danger with toast, right?
What do you mean? Yeah, health-wise, yeah. But I like dry toast. I mean, it's great with butter, but I could just whole wheat toast. I like it.
Just dry bread, huh? Mm.
Well, that's a odd way to put it.
I'm trying not to eat bread at all these days. And so it's dry bread. I'd rather have,
What? Then what are you getting a toaster for?
I rarely use a toaster.
No, all right.
Yeah.
Mark, you? What?
Dude. You're killing me.
You know what would happen? Mark's going to eat toast and he's going to get all kinds of crumbs in his little gray mustache.
His ginger mustache.
It's gray now.
It's gray.
I think this is natural. I think what happened was Mark went to the movie set and they said, we want you all natural. So he had to grow out whatever dye he had in his hair and his mustache.
Sorry, Ian. Michael is upset because I fooled him yesterday and I said something that he actually believed. And
I bought it too.
He bought it hook, line, and sinker, and now he's trying to get revenge. And I'm sorry, I know this doesn't make for good viewing for you. But it's funny for me knowing the inside.
You didn't fall for the gullibility isn't in the dictionary joke he had the other week. I mean,
but people did.
It actually goes. Whether this is
didn't you get me with that one? You got me with that one before, didn't you?
I think I may have.
Yeah, you got me with that one.
Mark is a pretty gullible guy, so I have to give him props. He got me. If you say I'm an actor, I swear to God.
Actor.
Look, we only have 5 minutes left. Should I get to an article? Because it doesn't look
yes, we have six. We have 6 minutes left, not 5.
Okay, 5 minutes by my clock. So maybe in Toronto it's
no, because I have the actual clock for how long we've been on the air, and we're going to give them an hour, and we've got 53 minutes and 59 seconds right now. 6 minutes. Go.
So. I want to get your opinion on this, James, because Michael's is irrelevant to me. But what do you think about the cancellation of Kamala Harris's Secret Service detail.
Well, actually, she'd had an extension on it, and it's that extension that was gotten rid of. Normally speaking, ex-presidents get it for life, right? And then the other people who get it, they get it for limited periods of time. And it was, as I understand it, it was an extension that Biden had given that was taken back. Now, I would be pretty, given the violence in our society, I would be, and I don't think it should be done for political reasons. And part of me believes that maybe Trump is doing this not for budgetary considerations or based on a security assessment, but it's Kamala Harris. He's the kind of guy who would take revenge but I mean, look at what they were doing in the previous. Again, I hate these in you too arguments because.
But that's what you do. We have a whole episode of Jim and I arguing about this where but the Democrats. We're talking about what Trump just did. What did Trump do?
About what Trump just did in its own context. I just want to point out when people say Trump is the end of the universe. Well, no, there's all kinds of precedents sometimes for what Trump does. This isn't the first time we've seen it. That is worth pointing out. How we got to Trump is worth pointing out. It's not like he sprang from the head of Zeus.
That's fine, but I'll tell you this: when Obama was in office and I criticized him nonstop, it was never incumbent upon me to say, but the Republicans do it too. But the Trumpsters have so trained us that it's like you have to say, oh, but the Democrats too. Right? I never did that before.
Yeah, it's true. It's true whataboutism. I hate that term whataboutism, but in this case it is. It's an attempt
because it's revenge. When it's revenge, it's a direct response to the whatabout. And so, but I don't like either. I don't like either. I don't like the malice, the malicious partisan way they did it then. I don't like the malicious partisan way it's being done now. But Michael, corrupt political psychology was not invented by Trump. He's just bringing it to a new
light. but he's made a caricature out of it. It's very much exaggerated under Donald Trump. But my point is that I criticized Obama when he wanted to for the bailouts. I criticized him for the healthcare stuff. I criticized him for the Benghazi stuff. Nonstop. I can't even go through all the things I criticized this guy for. So much so I didn't like Romney, but after watching Obama's State of the Union address prior to the election, I said, I got to support Romney. This guy's a socialist. When I said that, I don't remember Republicans saying, yeah, but what about Bush? Right? I never had to do that before. But when it's Trump, because everybody says they all do it. But what Trump has been doing is far to a greater extent than what they did.
He's taking it to a new level. I grant you.
Well, I think the politicians in the past understood the distinction between right and wrong in the sense that they tried to hide the fact that they were doing wrong, or they tried to go through pseudo constitutional means to get what they wanted. Trump is outright violating all of those. He has no conception of limitations or restraints on his power. As he said outright, I'm the president of the United States. I can do anything I want. Right. No, my friend, we citizens can do pretty much anything we want. You have certain powers that are ascribed to you, and you can go no further than that.
You know what I wish? I wish that the argument was this. Look, it was all previous politicians that have paved the way for this. And now Trump is revealing just how bad it can get.
Right.
But that's not what's done. What's done is not by you, Jim, but I mean, in general, it's this defense of Trump. He's doing this because of that, and therefore it's justified.
I've lived long enough. I'm in my 60s now. I've lived long enough where every single time I can say, well, if that's going to turn around and bite the other guy on the ass when next time their party's in power. It happens again and again and again, and it gets worse and it gets worse and it gets worse. So I'm just weary at this point. Of course, it's getting to the point of Trump, and the next time around, it'll be even worse. You'll have a demagogue who's completely power crazed and out for revenge, and it's all personal to him. That's the path you go down when you go down the fascist path. When you go down the strong leader, they worshipped Obama. They worshipped Kennedy before that. I am disgusted at politician worship.
They worshipped Roosevelt before that. Now, it used to be, Michael, this is not a piece of whataboutism. It used to be the Democrats lionized all of their peeps, even scumbags like Ted Kennedy, who actually left a woman to die.
They didn't do it with John Kerry or Al Gore, so
Okay.
I don't know about all of them.
But they do it with the presidents and the dynasties, the political dynasties. Now we're having the same kind of lionization with Trump, and it's
Didn't do it with Biden either.
And
I
it's
mean,
equal
so
get served. Well, but because Biden was so obviously for Clinton.
they did it with Clinton and they did it with Obama.
But at this point,
Gore didn't get elected president. It was Biden.
But at this point, Jim, I would say that I would take a Clinton over any politician out there today.
Yeah, because at least they were real. One of the refreshing things about the Clintons' time, they wouldn't deny his sexual antics or even many of his lies. They would just say, "Oh, well, that's personal." Now,
or they say character didn't matter.
Yeah, these politicians,
like the Republicans are saying now. All right, we now who's giving the capitalist thought of the day? Which one of you?
I did it yesterday.
Mark's turn.
All right, folks. So we've been talking a lot about we talk about a little bit about AI today. We talked about licensing, certification. In a free society, folks, advances in technology advance everyone. It makes us all richer. Certain jobs may go out of existence, but that frees up capital for all these other jobs and innovations that you could never possibly dream of in a million years. So as frightening as change is in a free capitalist society, it actually always redounds to the better for everyone. And one of the holds on innovation is these licensing and certifications where you have to get permission from the government to seem as if you're qualified to do a job. Well, in a free society, that's not the case. It's the person who's investing money in you, who's taking the time to bring you into their business, who has the responsibility for knowing whether or not you can perform the job. And as we've seen from this accident, the Department of Transportation failed multiple times to stop this guy who was apparently not very good at his job and finally amounted to the deaths of 3 human beings. Had that been on the trucking company, had the roads been private and people were held privately accountable for what transpired on the roads, I guarantee you it would be a much safer place. And so we aspire to a free society, a completely voluntary and choosing society, because we also understand that it works better. It works better. It's good and works. It works because it's good. That's the beautiful nature of, I think, objectivist ethics, is that the practical and the moral, well, you don't make distinctions between the two. So, and we don't make those distinctions in the Capitalist Party. So, folks, it's Friday, I believe. So you have a whole weekend to think about your premises. You also have a whole weekend to subscribe to this station. Please retweet, put this on other social media platforms because the algorithm likes it. If your premises are in any respect moving into the right wing of the establishment, we encourage you to come back to your home base, to capitalism, to freedom, to individual liberty, individual rights, because that is the moral engine that will drive us to prosperity, folks. So we'll see you on Monday. I'll be here. It's going to be a holiday, so I'm not working until Tuesday. So are you planning on being here, Mike? You look like
I'm here.
Okay, good. James,
I already told you I was going to be here.
James, thank you as always for guest hosting with us. It's always great to have you on. You always show Michael up. It's fantastic to have your contrast.
Someone's got to do it because the regular guy can't.
I normally do it, but you do it.
No, you don't.
And I'm
don't lie.
I'm tired of winning all the time. I want somebody else to win. So one of these days, Mike is going to get tired of losing. Anyway, guys, we love you. Please go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org, hit the donate button, and become a member of change. And let's take on the political establishment and win. All right, folks. See you on Monday. Peace.